St. Louis, Missouri, is a city with a rich history and deep roots in community values. Its neighborhoods brim with life, from bustling markets to historic landmarks. Among these is Carr Lane Visual and Performing Arts Middle School, a beacon of hope for many students. Elias Grant, the principal of Carr Lane, was considered a pillar of the community. He was a charismatic leader, admired by his colleagues and students alike. But beneath his polished exterior, a dark secret was brewing, one that would unravel the fabric of trust he had built. Jocelyn Rivers was a bright light in the education system. At Horace Mann Elementary School, she taught third grade, inspiring young minds with her passion and creativity. Her students adored her, and parents often praised her dedication. Jocelyn's personal life seemed equally fulfilling. She was 7 months pregnant and eagerly preparing for the arrival of her baby. Yet, her life held a secret, one that tied her fate to Elias Grant. Elias Grant and Jocelyn Rivers shared more than just a profession. They shared a clandestine relationship that had begun in secret and intensified over time. Jocelyn believed that their love could overcome any obstacle, but Elias viewed their relationship as a threat to his carefully crafted image. Jocelyn's pregnancy became a point of contention. Elias feared that if the affair became public, his reputation would be destroyed. His thoughts turned dark as he contemplated ways to protect his secrets. In early 2016, Elias began to feel the weight of his double life. The pressure of maintaining his image as a respected principal and devoted family man was becoming unbearable. Jocelyn's growing belly was a constant reminder of the life they had created in secret. Elias knew that he needed to make a choice. But instead of taking responsibility, he sought a way to erase his problem entirely. That's when he made a chilling decision: to hire someone to silence Jocelyn forever. Victor Simmons was a known criminal in St. Louis, with a long history of violent offenses. He lived on the fringes of society, surviving by any means necessary. When Elias Grant contacted him, it wasn't difficult to guess what he wanted. The two men communicated through phone calls and coded messages. Elias was careful to cover his tracks, but as the plan took shape, the cracks in his facade began to show. March 22, 2016, was a typical day for many in St. Louis. The city buzzed with its usual energy, unaware of the tragedy about to unfold. Jocelyn Rivers spent the evening at home, preparing for the arrival of her baby. That night, a knock on her door would change everything. Trusting the person on the other side, she opened it without hesitation. Moments later, a gunshot rang out, shattering the quiet of the night. The following morning, Jocelyn's boyfriend, Marcus Reed, grew concerned when she didn't answer his calls. He rushed to her apartment and found the door unlocked. Inside, he discovered her lifeless body. The scene was devastating. Jocelyn had been shot in the head at close range. Her unborn child, Micah Lee, did not survive. The news sent shockwaves through the community. News of Jocelyn's murder spread quickly. The St. Louis community, particularly the education sector, was in mourning. Teachers, students, and parents alike gathered to pay their respects. The loss of Jocelyn Rivers was felt deeply. She had been a beacon of hope for her students, a source of strength for her family, and a friend to many. Now, her memory would be preserved through the stories and love she left behind. Detectives quickly realized that this was no random crime. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Jocelyn knew her killer. They began to piece together a timeline and gather evidence. Elias Grant's name surfaced early in the investigation. Phone records revealed frequent communication between him and Victor Simmons. The detectives knew they were onto something. Victor Simmons was the first to be brought in for questioning. Detectives pressured him to reveal his connection to the crime. At first, Simmons remained tight-lipped, but the weight of the evidence against him was overwhelming. Under pressure, Simmons began to crack. He confirmed what detectives already suspected: Elias Grant had orchestrated the murder. The arrest of Elias Grant shocked the community. How could a man so respected and trusted be involved in such a heinous crime? As he was led away in handcuffs, whispers of betrayal spread through the city. Grant maintained his innocence at first, but the evidence was damning. He knew that his secrets were unraveling faster than he could contain them. The trial of Elias Grant became a media sensation. Reporters swarmed the courthouse, eager for any updates on the case. The community was divided. Some believed Grant was innocent, while others were convinced of his guilt. As the prosecution laid out their case, the details of Jocelyn's murder sent shivers down the spine of everyone in the courtroom. The defense, however, attempted to paint a different picture, claiming that Grant had been framed. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence against Elias Grant. Phone records, bank statements, and witness testimonies painted a damning picture. The jury sat in silence as the details of the murder-for-hire plot unfolded. Each piece of evidence connected the dots in a horrifying narrative. Jocelyn Rivers was not just a victim. She was the face of betrayal and loss. Prosecutors emphasized how Elias, a man trusted by so many, had plotted to kill an innocent woman and her unborn child. They described the cold, calculated steps he took to cover his tracks. As the prosecution wrapped up their case, the courtroom was filled with tension. People whispered, exchanging glances, wondering how someone with such a respectable facade could harbor such darkness within. Elias Grant's defense team knew they had a difficult task ahead. Their strategy focused on casting doubt on the reliability of Victor Simmons' testimony. They argued that Simmons, a career criminal, had fabricated the story to reduce his own sentence. The defense attempted to portray Elias as a victim of circumstance. They pointed to his impeccable record as a principal and his contributions to the community. They claimed there was no concrete evidence directly linking Elias to the crime. However, the jury remained skeptical. The defense's argument seemed hollow in the face of overwhelming evidence. It was clear that Elias had a lot to lose, and he was willing to go to any lengths to protect his secrets. Victor Simmons took the stand, and the courtroom fell into a hush. All eyes were on him as he recounted his interactions with Elias Grant. He described how Elias had approached him with the murder-for-hire plot and how the plan had been carried out. Simmons admitted to pulling the trigger, but he insisted that Elias was the mastermind. He claimed that Elias had promised him a large sum of money to kill Jocelyn Rivers. His testimony sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Despite his criminal past, Simmons' testimony seemed credible. The jury listened intently, taking in every word. His account matched the timeline and evidence presented by the prosecution, further solidifying the case against Elias. Throughout the trial, the memory of Jocelyn Rivers remained at the forefront. Her friends, family, and former students attended the proceedings, hoping for justice. They spoke to the media, sharing stories about Jocelyn's kindness, dedication, and passion for teaching. Jocelyn's legacy lived on through the lives she had touched. Her students remembered her as a teacher who made learning fun and meaningful. Her family mourned the loss of a daughter, sister, and soon-to-be mother. The community rallied together, holding candlelight vigils and creating scholarships in Jocelyn's name. Her memory became a symbol of resilience and the pursuit of justice. After weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury was tasked with deciding Elias Grant's fate. They were sequestered in a room, reviewing the evidence and discussing the case. The weight of their decision was immense. The jury members debated the credibility of Victor Simmons' testimony and the evidence presented. Some jurors expressed doubts, while others were convinced of Elias' guilt. The deliberation process was tense, with emotions running high. After several hours, the jury reached a unanimous decision. The courtroom awaited their verdict with bated breath, knowing that justice for Jocelyn Rivers depended on this moment. The courtroom was packed as the jury filed in to deliver their verdict. The judge asked the foreperson to stand and read the decision. "We find the defendant, Elias Grant, guilty on all counts." A collective gasp echoed through the room. Jocelyn's family broke into tears, embracing each other as they finally heard the words they had been waiting for. Elias sat stoically, his expression unreadable as his fate was sealed. The judge thanked the jury for their service and addressed the court. Justice had been served, but the pain of Jocelyn's loss would linger forever. The community could now begin the long process of healing. On sentencing day, the courtroom was once again filled with people seeking closure. The judge reviewed the details of the case before delivering the sentence. Elias Grant was given 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The judge emphasized the gravity of Elias' actions, particularly the murder of an innocent woman and her unborn child. He condemned Elias for betraying the trust placed in him as an educator and community leader. Jocelyn's family expressed relief at the sentence. While it couldn't bring Jocelyn back, it ensured that Elias would never have the chance to hurt anyone else again. Elias Grant was transferred to a maximum security prison to serve his sentence. Inside the prison walls, he was no longer a respected principal, but an inmate with a notorious reputation. He spent his days reflecting on his choices, though he never publicly admitted his guilt. His downfall served as a cautionary tale for those who sought to hide their sins behind a facade of respectability. Meanwhile, the community moved forward, determined to honor Jocelyn's legacy through acts of kindness and support for education. The St. Louis community, still shaken by the tragedy, found ways to heal. Schools implemented programs to support teachers and students dealing with grief. Counseling services were offered to those affected by the loss of Jocelyn. Jocelyn's family established a foundation in her name to support young educators. Her story became a rallying cry for change and justice in the education system. Though the pain of losing Jocelyn would never fully fade, her legacy continued to inspire hope and resilience in the community she loved. Jocelyn's family struggled to cope with the enormous void left by her absence. Her mother, Evelyn Rivers, became the family's pillar of strength, leading efforts to ensure her daughter's legacy endured. She found solace in advocating for victims of violent crimes. The Rivers family organized community events to raise awareness about domestic violence and mental health support. They believed that if Jocelyn's story could prevent even one tragedy, her death wouldn't be in vain. At these events, Evelyn shared stories of Jocelyn's life, emphasizing her passion for education and her dream of raising her unborn child, Micah. The community's outpouring of support reminded the family that they weren't alone in their grief. News of Elias Grant's crime spread like wildfire. His fall from grace shocked the entire city. Once celebrated as an exceptional educator, he became infamous for his betrayal and heinous act. Former colleagues and students grappled with the revelation. They recalled how Elias had always been charismatic, a man who seemed dedicated to his students. It was hard to reconcile that image with the one of a man convicted of orchestrating a murder. The school district issued statements condemning Elias' actions and expressing their condolences to Jocelyn's family. Meanwhile, parents questioned how someone capable of such evil could have been entrusted with their children's education. Victor Simmons, the hired gunman, was also sentenced to life in prison. His cooperation with authorities had spared him from the death penalty, but he would never see freedom again. Inside prison, Simmons reflected on his choices. He claimed that he regretted his actions, but his remorse came too late. He spent his days writing letters to his children, hoping to reconnect and steer them away from a life of crime. Simmons' story became a cautionary tale about the consequences of choices made in desperation. His letters were later published in a community newsletter, serving as a sobering reminder of the cost of violence. Jocelyn Rivers' former students struggled to process her death. Many of them had loved her as a teacher who brought warmth and excitement to the classroom. Her loss was a heavy burden for such young minds to carry. Counselors were brought into the schools to help students deal with their grief. They encouraged the children to express their feelings through art, writing, and music. The students created a mural in Jocelyn's honor, depicting scenes of joy and learning that she had inspired. The mural became a symbol of hope and healing. It stood as a reminder of the lasting impact Jocelyn had on the lives of her students, even in her absence. The trial and sentencing of Elias Grant attracted significant media attention. News outlets across the country covered the story, analyzing every detail and speculating about what drove him to commit such a crime. True crime enthusiasts debated the case on forums and podcasts, discussing the psychological profile of Elias and the tragic fate of Jocelyn. The media frenzy brought attention to the dangers of unchecked power and hidden secrets. However, Jocelyn's family expressed concern about the sensationalism. They urged the media to focus on Jocelyn's life and legacy, rather than glorifying the crime and the criminal. The community of St. Louis came together in the aftermath of the tragedy. Neighborhoods held meetings to discuss safety measures, and local leaders worked to implement programs aimed at preventing violence. Churches played a vital role in the healing process. Pastors spoke about forgiveness, resilience, and the importance of supporting one another. Jocelyn's story became a frequent topic in sermons, emphasizing the value of compassion and vigilance. The community's resolve to create a safer environment grew stronger. They were determined to ensure that no other family would endure the pain that the Rivers family had experienced. Evelyn Rivers dedicated herself to advocacy work. She traveled to schools, churches, and community centers, sharing Jocelyn's story and educating people on recognizing warning signs of potential violence. Her mission was to empower individuals to speak up and intervene when they saw troubling behavior. Evelyn believed that if someone had known about Elias' intentions earlier, Jocelyn's life might have been saved. Through her efforts, Evelyn turned her pain into purpose. Her talks inspired many to take action in their own communities, promoting kindness and awareness. The Rivers family established the Jocelyn Rivers Memorial Scholarship Fund to support aspiring teachers. The scholarship aimed to keep Jocelyn's passion for education alive by helping others achieve their dreams of becoming educators. Each year, recipients of the scholarship would write essays about how they planned to make a difference in the lives of their students, just as Jocelyn had. The fund became a source of hope for many young people. The first scholarship recipient tearfully thanked the Rivers family, expressing how Jocelyn's story had inspired her to pursue teaching. The moment was bittersweet, but filled with hope for the future. Years passed, but the memory of Jocelyn Rivers never faded. Her legacy lived on through the lives she had touched, the programs established in her name, and the ongoing fight for justice and safety in the community. Her story became a reminder of the power of resilience and the importance of standing against violence. Schools across the city continued to honor her with annual events, ensuring that new generations would learn about her life and the lessons her story carried. Evelyn Rivers, now a revered figure in the community, stood at the mural created by Jocelyn's students. She placed her hand on the painted image of her daughter and smiled softly, knowing that Jocelyn's spirit would forever remain in the hearts of those who loved her.